So welcome everyone to my podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And today we will have different conversation. We will have conversation about business strategies that most people or most business owners probably ignore, and yet is one of the most powerful strategy we should be using in our business. So I have a few people today. It's not only one. Today we are three of us in the studio. So welcome Derek, welcome Mike.
Thanks for having us, Alex.
Welcome Mike.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we are still trying to set up, but yeah, we are almost there.
Perfect.
Yeah, so what I would love to talk about today is strategies and business experience, because I think there's a lot how actually this application, how you started to get into this strategy, how that all kind of came up from the ground. And I would like to actually hear how you actually guys met.
It was many years ago now, 2000 and...
2000 and zero.
And zero. Yeah, there you go. I was thinking 2001, but we were both working at that time for a financial services company, which had us working very closely. Derek specialising in a particular vertical to start with, and I was pretty much just looking after their existing clientele. So Derek more on the business development front, mine more on the ongoing relationship side of things.
Yeah.
And we started that journey together there, and over the last, 22 years?
Yeah, 24.
24 years.
24, yep.
Check my math. The last 24 years we've been doing some really, really exciting things together, and learned a lot along the journey.
Yeah.
And why I ask where you met, because that is the thing when you actually put it out of the context a little bit, and you have two people meeting up, and I know you now, but I still actually don't know how you met. So it's interesting to look at now from helicopter view on your journey, right? Like you actually met in financial industry, you worked together in totally different space, and now again you are together. So I will definitely ask what was between that. But if you can introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background, Derek and Mike.
Mike, over to you as the founder of Referit app.
Oh dear, where to start? I guess my journey in the business world really started out of university. I remember, apart from being in the Army Reserve, going through university, which basically paid for the beer and play money while studying. I did a little bit of work with some research companies back in the 80s when, the research company used to call you on a weeknight or on a weekend on the telephone and say, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a few minutes to conduct a survey with myself?" Calling on behalf of whatever we were researching at the time. And the few minutes actually led to, in most cases, somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. So, it was quite an experience in learning in that initial engagement with people. But I, straight out of university, went straight into the financial services area. I always found, having done a double degree in marketing and economics at university, the whole marketing concept of insurance was always quite enlightening. Having had a father, or having my father in that industry, kind of opened my eyes to it at an early age, and just the whole concept of being able to provide a service or a product to people that was intangible. You couldn't see it, you couldn't touch it, you couldn't use it, and if you were using it, well, you weren't ever going to see it anyway because you were no longer with us. So it provided those sort of challenges earlier on in the piece, which I found quite enlightening at the time. And so I started off working with one of the larger insurance companies in-house on the corporate ladder, and had that journey for a number of years, which took me down to Sydney, where I was running the operations for one of the insurance companies. And finally, it brought me back to Brisbane, where back in 1995, I think it was, I started with the financial services company where Derek and I then eventually came together and started working. And the journey from there has been always a little bit more entrepreneurial. Both Derek and I have always had different visions of being able to do things differently, or finding a better way of doing things. And particularly in the financial services industry, we started putting together a platform that basically put client center of the universe, and had all of their professional advisors sitting around on an application.
When was that? It was years ago, right?
That was around about 2011, 2012.
That was quite innovative for that time, right?
Very, very innovative.
Yeah.
It was Teams before Teams became Teams.
Yeah.
So Mike had developed the platform and the product and all of the Teams innovation back then, and then 5 years later, Teams came out with Teams and put that product to bed.
Yeah. Because even the thought about client service or centric or customer centric, that came up a little bit later when people realized that it's all about relationships, all about customers, all about making people actually feel valued and happy and really take care of them. I think that came a little bit later, so that's pretty good thought for that. The year.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess the whole thought of that platform and concept, it was kind of around about the time when some of the social media platforms like Facebook were starting to become a little bit more acceptable in society. And it was really trying to create that space where people could actually come together. And we ended up changing it from Advisor Hub and rebranding it to Hub 3C, which basically stood for the connection, communication and collaboration of people.
Nice.
And it's been very much a theme Derek and I have run with ever since.
Yeah, I feel like, there's a theme of what we're going to talk about today as well. So that's nice. So actually it was developed ages ago, right? The idea.
Yeah, conceptually. Conceptually,
nice.
a long time.
Yeah, I think Referit has really become a very targeted evolution of everything, right? It's like taking really complex strategy structures and making them really simple to implement and deliver on, because it's really hard to make complex simple.
Yeah.
And it's been that sort of evolutionary process of
it takes
business
time.
development and technology, the strategy and the tactics, then the implementation, because the biggest challenge most people have is they're struggling with implementation.
Yeah, you mentioned Referit, and I would like to probably just give people a little bit of understanding, because we mentioned the word Referit a few times, and I feel like we should tell them what we talk about a little bit. But I will ask you to give us a little bit of background about you, something about you, Derek, if you can. So we circle back to what Referit is.
Yeah. So, sort of the short version of the long story, where Mike has a formal double degree background, I have very much the country town trade background. Decided I didn't like country town living or the trade, so then I just go, what am I going to do? 21, I'll go into financial services. So there's a fair bit of time in financial services, and then some time starting up and scaling up a service business. Then back into financial services, where Mike and I met. And then we both left that company to go and do our own specialist consulting businesses. And unbeknownst to each other, we both started to dabble in tech in different ways. And then after a couple of years of being down in the trenches doing things, we actually came back together, and then we were going, I'm doing tech. Let's do some stuff together.
It's so interesting of two people from totally different background, different start of the life, right? And when you're thinking, like you said, Derek, what should I do? Finance. I was like, that wouldn't really cross my mind.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you guys, met and you met again. So it's interesting development of relationship.
Yeah. And then, so my marketing and sales background, or my marketing background's very much been in the trenches, self-taught through trial and error and finding the right mentors and following those processes. So, but all along the way, and Mike's experience is the same as my experience, when we've worked for ourselves, we've had to develop business without an ad budget. When we've worked for somebody else in a sales or business development role, somebody else owns the marketing initiative. Somebody else owns the marketing budget, and if it works as a salesperson, you're on the receiving end of some leads. The quality can be good, quality can be bad.
Control.
Yeah. And so when you're accountable to KPIs and targets and that sort of thing, the only thing that you're in control of is the business development and networking and relationship building that you do as part of your process. And so that's something that Mike and I have always had to do throughout whatever it is that we've done. We've always had to build and maintain relationships, and it's the quality of those relationships that generates leads that ultimately leads to quality business, quality relationships. And it was the process of watching people struggle with that lead generation process, struggle with that sales conversion process and business development process that's ultimately led us down the technology path that we are on. So it's the culmination of our technology experience and our sales and business development experience coming together with what we've been doing in recent years and moving forward.
And that was the major reason that I really wanted you here, even though you guys were like, maybe not yet. I don't want to do that. I'm not prepared. I know Mike didn't want to do this, but I think from perspective of what you're talking about, what our kind of conversations were, it's, to me, always strikes me when I see business owners to delegate or trying to delegate the most important strategies and tasks in their business to people. They don't know how they work. They don't have any control over that, and they're not sure what is happening basically with their budget, right? So it's quite interesting how businesses now work, right? Like everything is outsourced, everything, like all marketing. And I did the same when I started, and I burned so much money. Like they just were wasted. Like it was terrible experience. And when I'm thinking about how many agencies I work with and how much money I spent, and I got like 0 leads, or when we talk about quality, there was no quality leads at all. So that's why I think this conversation is very important. But also on the other side as well, I'm fascinated by how you actually were growing your business. And Mike, especially when we talked about yesterday and, about your financial business and all that, was based on relationships. And I think that's what we need to come back. It's almost like come back to basics and simplify things, because we get so overwhelmed by strategies and things, they are in a market right now. It's technology, applications, marketing strategy. You can have so many of them, but which one is the right one? And if you don't know, I think, the path is to simplify and slowly try to find out and go through relationships and start to look at what is the stability in my business, what is the strength that I can actually work with, or I can kind of build up on that. So that's why I think it's a very important conversation. Yeah,
it's a really interesting observation. And I had a similar conversation last night on a webinar, and with a channel partner manager in the car on the way over here. It's like starting to talk to people with what they're doing with their sales process, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And the psychology of people is that we're herding creatures, right? We're trend following by nature. We want to do what other people are doing. And I think one of the real challenges over the last 10 years is the marketplace has got so focused on top of funnel lead generation at all cost and at scale that they're actually missing a lot of the value in the activity that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. They're doing one thing, but they're missing the 10 other opportunities that are falling out the back end of being so focused on top of funnel and cold leads at scale, that they're missing the value in their network. They're missing the value in the networks of the best clients. They're not taking the time to focus on the gold that's actually laying around in their existing relationships, networks, businesses, client base, past leads, right? And so that's a big part of what we focus on as a business, is helping other businesses focus on that.
And I think another element to that is with technology, and as we talk about people liking to follow things, and they become almost fad-like. The last 10 years particularly has seen quite a transition from people using reach out through things like email to start with, and then that's become overused, overburdened to the point where, we're now no longer really trusting what's coming into that inbox.
Yeah.
And the same sort of things are now starting to fall out from a lot of the sort of digital advertising and the like, whether it be through Facebook or your social medias or through your Google advertising and that sort of thing. Had its time, had its place. It still has a time and a place in the business, most definitely. But I think, that pendulum is now swinging back the other way to what was grassroots for any business back in the 90s particularly, where it was all built around relationships. So that the trust coming back into the business relationships, I think, is one of the key things that we need to focus on, because it's just been so deteriorated by current sort of processes and systems that we've been using.
Yeah, I think what you said really you provoked the thought when I'm looking at that from like a bigger picture. It's basically all was based on relationships, and because tech came in and now we have this thing that we can simplify our work, but what we did, we actually didn't use it right way. So we actually supposed to learn, I believe, right now from technology, because last 10 years or 15 years, what we do with technology, we actually bombarding people. We're trying to do cold sales, and we try to sell someone from first thing, like first message, people are selling you and offering you something. And I think that's like zero relationships. So basically what we did, we tried to speed up the process with technology. So instead of 5 emails and 5 relationships, I send 1, 2, 3,000 emails. So someone I catch maybe in the, right mind, and they answer like, yeah, I actually want it, right? So yeah, it's great, but how many people on the way you burn and you're telling them basically delete me and never talk to me because I'm the one that is annoying you, right? So people don't see the other side of that, and I feel like maybe we are coming back, to learn about technology. Okay, it's here. It should actually help us to create relationship. It should actually help us to create better business and values-based business. Yeah. So it's not only about money, profit, and of course I'm not saying it's not about profit. All businesses are about profit, but how we get there, I think it's most important.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of trends in motion at the moment that are worth keeping an eye on. The first one is this hype cycle with AI, right? So being in financial services, back in the early 2000s, or just the late 90s, was mining stocks. And then in the early 2000s, it was everything with the .com in it was blowing up.
Yeah.
Right. So every mining venture stock changed itself to a .com stock, and everybody was buying stuff like crazy. And then the .com era blew up. And I'm using that as an analogy for hype cycles, right? And we're on a hype cycle for AI right now. It's really easy to access. Everybody's, again, this last focus of the last 10 years of doing everything at scale. They've gone off the email marketing and the outreach spray and pray marketing, and now they're doubling down on it using AI.
Yep.
So we've got this increasing glut of content, so people's propensity to actually respond to it's dropping. This is why we're seeing ad spends go up and return on ad spend tanking, right? And then we've also got this trust issue with AI because everyone's talking about fake everything. So we've got this trust issue coming up. So one of the trends that I want to flag with your listeners right now is, and we're starting to hear it a lot more in the market, the trust economy, right? The trust economy that Mike mentioned, the pendulum swinging. The pendulum's definitely swinging, and it's this next 3 years. The other trend that you want to watch is increasing glut of AI-driven content. That content's going to get better, right? So where it used to be, well, anyone could spray out emails, but their copywriting was rubbish, therefore you had a competitive advantage if you could write good copy. Well, now AI is going to increasingly give everybody the ability to write better copy. So the messaging is going to be better messaging, but everybody's going to have good messaging. So how do you stand out?
Yeah.
And it's still going to be noisy.
And it's still going to be noisy, right? So how do you get the cut through? Now, if you're selling $100 widgets at scale, then how do you partner with people that have your ideal customer, right? Because that's where you're going to get borrowed trust into those communities of trusted relationships. And if you're selling high ticket items, high ticket products or services, then it's going to be relationship marketing that's going to actually get you the cut through and be the point of difference. It's not going to be your copy, unfortunately, because everybody's going to be able to write it. It's not going to be able you spray and pray at mass and advertising because everybody can do that. So where's going to be your point of difference?
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned relationship marketing or relationships and trusted relationships are coming, in a space they are most important. They were always important, but I think because of that all noise, they kind of became as a secondary kind of strategy, or people started to hide. And especially after COVID as well, I think there was the element of, I can stay hidden, I can be, on my computer, everything is done for me basically, and AI, even simplified it. So I think more and more people didn't need to go out there, right? Or didn't need to create so many relationships how it was before. And I feel like that also decreased. So I think we are coming back, as you said, to relationship marketing. And I will probably ask you, because I know, Mike, I think yesterday mentioned that you build up the businesses, right? And you have FlexiDev, you had a financial business. And I would like to know, what was your major strategy? How did you grow so much? How come, this happens so fast and you have amazing company running?
Oh, thank you. I think, and Derek will be testament to this similarly with his journey. But in both recent businesses, being the financial services one, which we sold back in 2017, and then I took the leap of faith and going full into the technology space. But all three of the most recent businesses have all been built on referral and relationship management. Particularly with the financial services business, my father and I had that business running for the better part of 10 years together. And in that particular business, we never spent a dime on any sort of advertising, whether it be through socials or the Googles or even print media, none of that sort of stuff. Yep. We created really good, strong relationships with, as Derek mentioned, finding those sort of providers inside that have your ideal clients. So we built up a lot of really deep, trusting relationships with accountants, lawyers, and other financial planners because we provided a very specialist service. And as part of that whole service, a big part of the building of the trust came because of the service that was being provided. It was when you're just interacting with the client, it was at a very personal level. When you're asking people about what their health history is like, you've got to have a significant sort of trust in that relationship, almost like a patient to a doctor type of sort of relationship. So coming from that environment, it just seemed like a very natural extension to then have those relationships and build those trusting relationships with those sort of centres of influence or the partner networks that we developed. So 95% of the business was born off the back of referrals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the major reason I ask, because you are really walking the walk. So that was a major question, because we talk about the Referit, and I mentioned for our audience that we will talk about what it is. So they have understanding when we're using Referit is actually something that is coming back to relationships and referrals. And I just wanted to show that someone who is actually walking the walk and talking the talk and develop businesses, in that way, and the major strategy was about the relationship and trust, is the right person to probably develop or creating the application for this kind of thing. So if you can tell us a little bit more, I think just give people a little bit of overview, what is Referit, why we talk about this.
I guess, just building on what Mike spoke about then, the reason that Mike was able to build 3 successful businesses with no ad spend, purely on relationship-based marketing, was because he had a focus on it. He had an ingrained process, but more importantly had a focus on it. The same for myself. I've got a history in the past of being able to pivot into industries with no network in that industry or very little network in that industry and grow within that space. And again, it was because similarly to Mike, it was all around integrity and building those relationships and building value into those relationships. And value comes in different forms, right? Value is not always money. So when Mike talks about what we did in the financial services space, we had relationships with solicitors, with accountants, with other financial advisors, with other general insurance brokers, right? All of these professionals. Now, why were they referring business to us? It wasn't because of money, right? Because in that professional environment, we weren't able to pay them kickbacks and commissions. So, and that's the same for a lot of industries. Yet other industries, if you're not paying a reward for referrals or an incentive, then you're not getting those referrals, right? So it's different horses for different courses. But the whole context of value in referral relationships, and I think this is a lot of what gets missed with with a lot of businesses, is that the reason that accountants and solicitors, well, particularly accountants and financial advisors would refer to us, because they knew that they could pass a client across to us, that their status and relationship with that client was going to be protected because we were delivering value and we were professional and we followed up on our promises. But more importantly for those businesses, they were putting a moat around their client in knowing that they weren't going to have another financial advisor or accounting firm or whatever introduced to that client, because we were a trusted network and trusted collaboration. We were protecting the integrity of that relationship. So I think a lot of businesses missed and I'll refer to sort of downstream and upstream value of creating those partner networks. And, there can be value other than money or commissions or whatever in that referral relationship, in that becomes an insurance policy. Because typically when you're doing something, you solve a problem for the client, but there's a next thing. There's a next problem that they've got to deal with. And if you can't solve that problem for them, then you really want to be building a trusted network that you can refer that client to, because you're adding value to that client in that process, and you're protecting their journey, and you're potentially protecting your business, because you know that if you've got that trusted network, you can pass them on, the client's going to get the result, and that provider's actually going to look after you rather than trying to poach them or send them elsewhere.
Yeah. And you are, again, the person that is helping them to solve the problem. So I think, that's another element of trust.
Well, there's value. You're building value into your client relationship by understanding what the next problem is, and simply being able to be the guide that sends them to another trusted person that delivers an outcome. And again, that just builds your network, and people start to think about you and talk about you in a very positive way that ultimately leads to new business, new relationships, new connections.
And I think also an extension to that is what we call closing the loop as well, in terms of having those trusted relationships. It's got to have that transparency through the entire relationship. It's not just on that particular transaction. But even at the transactional level, I think it's really important where somebody is putting their faith and trust in you to provide a particular service to their client, their friend, their colleague, whomever it is. There is an underlying need for that person to know that they've made a trusted referral, and that person's going to be well looked after in that process. And as part of the completion of that process, it's really, really important, I feel, in building upon the trust, that you can circle back to the person making the original recommendation, saying, thanks so much for your referral, much appreciated. Thanks goes a long way. It doesn't always, like Derek said, necessarily need to have a financial outcome to it, but just gratitude, I think, is a fundamental part of the process in itself. But where we're closing this loop and going back to the referral source, saying thank you, and also getting the client to provide some positive feedback to that referral source, again, just is further enhancing, the whole outcome.
Yeah, I agree with closing the loop. Basically, it makes sense because when I have, for example, I have accountant, I have a bookkeeper, I have like some other people around me, and anytime my client needed help, I know that I can send that one person there, and I know that person will take care of them. And the best thing happens when they come back to you and they said, "Oh my God, he was amazing, really helped me to solve the problem." So it's like they're not grateful only for the service, but they're grateful to you, and just all that loop actually feels so good when you can help clients different way. Because it's not about money. Like most businesses should understand that if you are actually not in the business to help people or help your clients and customers, so rather don't be in the business, because we can make money different ways. But if you're working with people, I think the major thing is to really try to focus on that customer. So we're going back to that customer centric, right? Like really focusing on how we can add value to that person. So what do you, because I remember you mentioned something, I think it was in your presentation, and congratulations, that was a great presentation yesterday. So I would love to know, because you mentioned the cost of inaction in this area, right? Like when we talk about the most powerful strategy, and that's, your referral strategy or referral marketing, what actually is the cost? And you had a great example there, a few different examples. So I would like to probably highlight that, because we don't understand or we don't take action on something when we don't understand the value of that. And I realized from your presentations and from talking to you a few times that it actually took me a few times, to talk about this strategy and referral marketing and all this. It's like, oh, that's too complicated for me. And I was like, I don't have time for it. But I realized when you started to look at the numbers as well and look at the loss of relationships, that's another part, and a loss of the network. So can you tell us about that? Because I think that will be a very powerful message.
Yeah. Look, I guess to give it a little bit of context to what I'm about to say is that, we've got into this hype cycle of everyone being so busy generating new leads and generating new activity, and this what I refer to as top of funnel inbound strategies, right? That we're rushing, we're trying to hit that next first base, but we're not actually slowing down to go faster, right? It's like, well, what's the next new lead? But hang on, I haven't actually worked on converting the last 5 that I've got. And we see this a lot in B2B networking groups, right? You front up every week and you're chasing leads or you're trying to pass leads, and if you don't have a really good follow-up process, then those leads go into a bucket, and that bucket's just leaking in the corner, right? Because they're not being followed up and actioned. And so, like a really good example of this, back when I was doing some fractional business development work in the tech space. Now, that's just a really fancy word. That's the modern term for commission-only sales, right? But
sounds good.
But it sounds good. It's all modern fractional. I mean, so I'm doing a bit here and a bit there. But I got a technology company, and I got a couple of consultants, and we had 7 people around a boardroom table, right? I had already established the value in the minds of all the parties that were there. So we were just having a conversation around solidifying that value. Everybody agreed that there's great opportunity to work together. And so, great, my job's done. You guys go away and do business together. I didn't follow up that relationship. They didn't follow up that relationship. 2 years later, I actually went to work full-time for the technology company that I'd been doing the connection for. And I'm scrolling through the database. I'm looking for someone. Oh, that's that consultant I introduced. I wonder how much business I've done together. Donuts, right? 0 in 2 years. So I got on the phone to him, went and had 2 cups of coffee, 2 coffee meetings, and within the next 6 months, that business wrote over $11 million worth of business.
Wow.
Right? So that's a missed opportunity, but people can't count it because they're not focusing on it. Therefore, they're not aware of the missed opportunity. So I start to talk about the cost of inaction. So we're taking all of these actions at the top of funnel, generating all of these leads. But if we're not following up properly, we're not building the relationships, we're not maximising those leads, then what's the cost of that inaction? So just doing the math on that, they went 2 years without doing any business. Then they went 6 months and did $11 million. So we can reasonably assume the opportunity cost of inaction over those 2 years was $42 million. Now, they're big numbers because they're bigger businesses and bigger clients, but that exact framework and analogy works for every business, right? It's all relevant. If you left $200,000 worth of business over the next 12 months for a small business, that might be 50% of their current revenue, right? So small numbers can be big numbers for other smaller businesses. So it's really about the principles of the circumstance rather than, well, I'm not doing $5 million contracts, so it's not relevant to me. No, there's opportunity sitting in your current sales, marketing and sales process that you're walking past. You just don't have a process for identifying what that is at the moment. Therefore, you're not aware of the opportunity cost. Therefore, you're not taking action to fix it.
Yeah. So why do you think, because I'm probably a great example, I had a sales coach for a long time, and my sales coaches cost me so much money, and there was this part of the learning that, you have script, you know what to say, you know how to say it, you learn psychology, you learn how to do it, but there's this missing part, what we talk about, and that's actually, what is the nurture sequence? What is that nurturing part? What is the follow-up, or how you actually work together with these people to build up that relationship? So it's interesting that you're talking about that, top of the funnel, because I realize everyone, when you go to any small business, and this is mostly in small, medium-sized business, that people always try to get more leads. And they have database of 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 people or 15,000 people, but they don't get one referral from the database. The database doesn't mean anything. And this is what is really sad. Like, we all start to focus on, because first thing when you try to work with marketing agency, what is your list like? It's like, I just deleted 5,000 of my contacts because they were inactive. So as rebuilding the list, it's coming from 500 people. But having 500 people, they are involved somehow in your business, it's much better than have 15,000, the lead list and run an advertisement and get more leads. They actually are not taking through that whole funnel or the relationship, and it's not building the trust at all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was just going to say, it's a really interesting point you make there, Alexandra. I think we underestimate how difficult it is also for people to make a referral, because it's not a natural thing to, just jump out of bed one morning and say, I must remember to refer such and such, because there's that underlying, will they be looked after, all of that sort of thing. So, it comes back to creating these relationships and deepening the relationships with your clients. And, Derek in his presentation last night touched on this in terms of, if you've got a business that is not providing good service, or, clients are not happy, and that sort of thing, there's no use trying to create any sort of top of funnel, middle of funnel, or anything like that, because you're putting, good people into a machine that's going to push out bad outcomes,
and never come back.
Or incorrect outcomes.
Yeah.
And quite rightly so. They, had the experience, it's not for me, move on, find somebody else. But in terms of that whole dynamic of the business, if you've got a good business providing exceptional service, client-centric, around all the thoughts and processes, and you're delivering, what you say what you're going to do, you then become, you're at the starting line, I guess, is a good way of putting it.
So it's almost like you need to be referable, or what is the right word, right?
100%.
Yeah, so 100%. Yeah.
So that's the starting point, right?
Yeah.
Like, really start to focus on what is actually the quality of business. Are my clients maybe naturally referring me to other clients? That will be probably the first question to ask. Because if they do it naturally, I believe they're happy with your services. So there is something good about your services, right? So to me, that is the first point to notice if your business in last 4 years or 5 years or 10 years, somebody refer you the client or to the client. I think that's important part probably, yeah?
Yeah. Look, I guess there's a lot of fundamentals in marketing and sales that get missed by people. Like you can have a good business, good product, good service, but if at the top of your sales or your marketing funnel, you're targeting the wrong person, right? You're not focused on your ideal client, and your advertising is attracting not your ideal profile. Then it doesn't matter how much ad money you're spending. Right from the start, you're behind the 8 ball because you're attracting the wrong people. And even if those people then come in and buy, what you're doing is you're scaling your problems, right? So one of the marketing mentors that I follow follow really deeply is Russell Brunson. And he talked about one business that he built where he struggled to get out of bed every morning because he just didn't like his clients. And he realised that he built a business that was attracting the wrong people he didn't want to work with, right? A lot of people have good businesses, but if they're attracting the wrong type of client in the first place, then they're going to be hard to work with, and they're going to frustrate you, and it's going to be hard for them to refer, right? So what I see in the B2B networking space is a lot of small businesses not being able to clearly articulate who is their ideal client. What is it that they're delivering to that ideal client that's of value to them, and why is it important to that ideal client, right? So it's all about them, right? When your network understands who you're looking for and the value that you deliver, and you can wrap a story around that, then that makes it easier to refer. But then referrals can come in different ways. It's like, rather than just expecting your clients to refer, which, as Mike pointed out, it's counterintuitive for them. It's not part of their natural process and how they operate. So how do you, when you're in the B2B space, it's a little bit more natural because everybody's in business development mode in some way, shape or form. But the question then really comes down to, how do you create actions or activities that naturally get your clients and your network to bring people into a conversation, to bring them into an event, to bring them into a webinar, or to bring them into a podcast, or to bring them into a lunch, or bring them into something that you're running online, offline, bring them to a meeting. What are the creative things that you can do to actually get people to introduce you without physically having to think about making a referral, which is not natural for most people, right? When you get into that B2B space and that B2B networking, it's like being really clear about who is your ideal client. Most business owners give me a demographic, and then they give me a really, really wishy-washy value proposition, right? So I think I ran down a rabbit warren there. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but...
No, I feel like that's another part of the kind of, I guess, topic that where we're going is really important, because I started to do, like, guys, that I just moved to Queensland basically, so I don't have any network here, right? So I'm all basically relying on creating the relationships and all new relationships. So I'm starting from beginning basically, but I can see how important is what you're saying, because understanding who is my client and demographic and all that is so important. When I was starting to have conversations with, for example, Pilates studio, and or different gyms, different companies, and they ask me, okay, what is your client? Who is your client? And we're looking at the demographics, like, do we actually target the same audience? Do we have actually a network of members? They will be actually supporting you, and we will be able to help you sell your stuff or refer your program. So it is interesting to look at that. Like, it's so important, because, for example, I don't know, I have 20 years old and 60 plus years old. If I'm in a market targeting 40 years old, it's probably not going to be the right partner. So it's really understanding where we can actually help each other, because also the other person that wants to refer or help you, or the other partnerships, they want to be sure that they are adding value as well. So it's not just chit-chat, and you ended up having nothing and not helping anyone. So I think that's really important to understand your business from that perspective. So that was...
And making it easy for somebody else to remember your value proposition.
100%.
And then it will then come naturally. There'll be the triggers in the conversation. Go, I need to refer Alex to Mike, because there's a trigger, right?
Yeah.
The next challenge is then how do you do that, right? Because there's so many different ways to communicate nowadays. There's most business owners are in multiple different networking events, are going to multiple events online. They're in various different social media platforms. They're communicating across email, text, LinkedIn message, Facebook message. So it's just this diffused process. So when it comes to generating and creating and tracking and managing, connecting, communicating and collaborating around referrals, there's no common ground. Everybody has a different CRM. Everybody has a different process. Everybody has this, that, and the other. And that's really part of the problem that we solve. We solve that implementation problem with the technology, and then we help people with the strategy and the tactics, because tech's one thing and tech can move things faster, but if you're moving the wrong things faster, I sort of equate it to like putting a bag of fertilizer in a Ferrari, right? Yeah, you might be able to go really fast, but all you're doing is moving shit fast, right? So it's that old CRM database thing, rubbish in, rubbish out. Okay, so it's
what an example.
Yeah, it's about and my apologies in advance to the listeners. You can edit that out. But it's really about making sure that you've got the right strategy, that you've got the right tactics, and then you've got the right implementation process. But it's also about having the right message to market so that you're generating the right clients. Like your sales coach, it may have been that he was just the right coach for the wrong person. It may have been that he was just taking on anybody. He shouldn't have taken you on as a client. Maybe he was better fit for a different type of client because you needed something specific. You needed something different. It might have been that he just didn't have a good business model and he needed to improve it as well. But a lot of the times, if we're attracting the wrong people, it doesn't matter how great our process is. If we're attracting the wrong people, we're still going to have challenges in the delivery and the execution.
And I think a big part of that is, attracting your ideal client into the business. Another extension to what we've got in terms of a formula that Derek's put together. It's and I'll get you to explain that in a sec, if you can, please, mate. But it's also identifying those channels within your business. Those marketing channels. So we often refer to things like the B2B sort of space. There are some others within that whole referral marketing or relationship marketing that each channel has a very specific sort of strategy that attaches to it. Not necessarily around just strategy, but also education around that particular part of the channel. So, your business to business sort of thing is really enlightening those business partnerships, giving them an understanding of what you do, how it works, and then getting that feedback from clients, giving them the trust in that relationship. Another one that's really overlooked all the time is within a business. You've got employees within a business that quite often will identify an issue for a client, but will sit there and not say anything because there's no incentive for them to do it, or there's not the education to be able to push it through and that sort of thing. So we've got that sort of employee to business sort of relationship. We've got as Derek mentioned, the network to business or business to networking side of things, whether you're attending seminars, conferences, traditional business to business networking events, and the like. They've all got, I guess what I'm saying is a strategy or a channel that needs a very dedicated approach.
Yeah, there's only one word that is coming up all the time when you're talking, and it's communication. Communication. Yeah. So I feel like, that's probably simplifying, the problem you solve basically from all the problems that we talk about. The major one is actually communication. It's how I say it, when I say it, how I send it, how I communicate it, how I keep it, how I follow up on that. Like it's all this bubble of communication, right? So that's.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue for you to explain the formula.
Yeah, so basically, Michael Gerber, is often quoted, and I'm paraphrasing here, that systems run businesses and people run systems. And that's when you get growth. That's when you get consistency and certainty. When you've got clear frameworks that people understand how to use them, and more importantly, they're easy to use, because, I've worked in businesses where there's really good intent, but the systems and processes are not there to actually deliver on that intent, and therefore things break down, or they don't go as fast as they could.
I can confirm that. I'm just going to, there is one thing that I would like to say, because in coaching world, anytime you come to culture or you're trying to kind of assess the company and looking at what actually is happening, there is always problem with people, that's what people say. But actually, at the end, when you look at that, the problem is process, because process drives behavior. So I love that you say that, because system is so important.
Yeah,
Definitely confirmation of that.
Yeah. So when Mike and I, we had the strategy, the tactics, the technology, but we were really looking at, right, so what have we built here? We've built a series of frameworks. And a series of systems, and we've built technology to actually implement it. But how do we explain these frameworks in a really simple process? So we then pulled all of our process together and then looked at it in a step-by-step way, and then went, okay, so now how does this strategy can be used anywhere? People can go and build all the systems and processes to execute on this strategy. So there's value that we're adding out into the community. If they want to turnkey it and want to go fast, then we have the technology to deliver it. So that's the next step. So we then went, okay, what are we doing? We're finding our ideal customer, because everything starts with knowing who your customer is. So Russell Brunson, Dan Kennedy, they always talk about message to market and finding a hungry crowd. So you can have a good hot dog stand. If you're the only hot dog stand in front of that, you can have an average hot dog stand. You're out the front of a baseball game and people are leaving and they're hungry, and you're the only hot dog stand, you're going to sell hot dogs. So where do you put yourself in front of your ideal customer? Is essentially that analogy. Once you understand who your ideal customer is, you've already got a better business. So that informs your message out to your marketing to attract those ideal customers, and your ideal customers associate with more of your ideal customers, and they have advisors and vendors and other people that they work with that are part of their trusted network. So if you've got a good client, they typically have a really good network. So then how do you build the framework to engage with that network in a value-added way? And then that comes down to you having the right message and process to get your clients to introduce you to their other suppliers and vendors, because they have more of your ideal clients. So we talk about the one-to-one referral process. That's clients referring, or somebody giving you a referral here and there. Then you've got a one-to-more strategy. So that's where you've got partner relationships. That partner has a community or a network of your ideal clients, and they're referring to you multiple times. So you've got the ability, you've got leverage in there. So that's the I part of the formula. So the formula is basically I times 3C over time to value. So once you know who your ideal client is, you can then start to connect with them more easily, because it's much easier to go and find them. You're not doing this spray and pray marketing that costs you a fortune, which we've already discussed, the increasing ad cost, reducing ad spend, ad conversion. You've now got these direct relationships that you can get a warm introduction into a large number of your ideal clients. So now you're shortcutting the process. You've got no ad spend. The process then makes the connection process much, much easier. You know who you're communicating with. Your message to market is very clear. When you're talking to the market, your ideal customer knows you're talking to them, because you're talking specifically about their problems, their concerns, or their goals, right? And that makes your conversion a lot easier. When you're coming through partner network, you've got borrowed trust coming into that relationship. So that makes the connection process a whole lot faster, and the communication process a lot easier with that warm introduction and that borrowed trust, right? And then it then comes down to you having an offer that's appealing to your ideal client, right? Because you've specifically packaged up an offer, and that's the collaboration piece. And we talk about collaboration as opposed to gap selling or bant selling or whatever, because the sales process, Alex, if I've got something that's of no value to you and no use to you, I can't, as hard as I might try to sell it to you, I can't sell it to you, right? But when I've got value and I can articulate that value to you and it's important to you, I don't need to sell you anything, because I'm either solving a problem or helping you towards a goal that you're passionate about, therefore you buy. So we see the whole bottom of funnel sales process as just a collaboration. And as we're collaborating, if we can't deliver value to you, then hopefully you've got something along the way. But if you don't buy, then we're not the right vendor, and hopefully we can refer you to somebody else who can help you, right? So that's where, again, you extend the value in the relationship, even if you can't transact at that point in time, by being able to, I can't solve your problem, but you know what? I know a competitor of mine that can, because you're actually his ideal client, you're not my ideal client, and we've both worked that out, right? And people appreciate that for you, and you'll find that when you're referring business to other people that you're not my ideal client, you should go over there, and they get value over there, they will find your ideal client and refer them back to you, right? Likewise, when you've got trusted partner relationships, the partner that you refer business to, he will come across an opportunity that's actually, it's too big for him, he'll refer it to you, or it's too small for him, he'll refer it to you, right? And that's what trusted networks and partnerships do. And again, I think I ran down another rabbit, Warren.
No, I was just, okay, where can I start now? Okay, so I was curious because you mentioned all that, what is the cost? We talk about cost of inaction in this area, right? We talk about the strategy itself, like it's so important. And you took us a little bit through the strategy, like where, who is your ideal client, where to start, how to start to communicate. But I think we're still missing out, okay, so the technology part, right? Like there is a tech, and why, we know now why is that important to have some kind of system or process. So I'll probably take you back to that, because I think that's the most important part of conversation to the end, to really start to make people understand that yes, you can build up all your referral marketing. You can start to write down who is your ideal client. What is your maybe ideal network partner, or partner in the network that has already your clients, and you can start to write down all this information. But now, okay, but what to do now, or what is going to help me, or is that tech that will help me to accommodate or facilitate the process? How can I make it, as a professional referral marketing, so I can introduce that to my clients, and how easy I can take them through. So that's probably where I would like to go. So we actually don't forget to mention what we mentioned at the beginning. What is Referit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is it comes back down to having, high tech, but with a high touch is really where I think a simple way of breaking it down. And, I think most businesses and business owners will testify that, if you've got a good process that's sitting behind your business, it takes a lot of the pain points away. It allows you to identify things early in the process. If a client is becoming a little disgruntled with something, you can, step in, have those relationships where you've got an open communication and transparency. So, having a good system and process behind your strategy, in this case being a referral strategy or a relationship strategy, is really key. And it's having that technology that's nice and simple and easy to use, so that it actually facilitates, it doesn't add another step or another burden to the process. And with Referit, that's really been our sort of key focus, is taking all of this complexity, which is in relationships. It's not, relationships aren't a simple thing. Absolutely. But finding a technology, using the technology to simplify a process to make sure that we're having the right outcomes. And that's really where we're focused.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is, most business owners go, oh God, not another piece of technology. Oh God, we've got to implement something new. Oh my God, we've got this whole change management process that we've got to go through. And this was really a key part of our value proposition when developing Referit app. It was, no, this is actually just how do you create new opportunities in a really efficient way out of the systems and processes, the current marketing process and the current sales process that you're currently going through. So there is no big change management gap. It's no different to sending an SMS. It's no different to sending an email at the initial action point, but it's the process that does it, and everything that happens after that is where the power comes from, right? So that you've got consistency in the way that you're connecting across your referral network, either giving referrals or receiving referrals. You've got visibility and reporting, and dare I say it, a level of accountability and feedback automation. Because a big thing is a lot of people refer and they give a great opportunity, and then the two people go off and do business together. It might be 6 months after they've consummated the transaction that before you hear anything about it, because nobody thinks to actually follow up. So we've started to automate a lot of that process so that there's at least acknowledgement around, got the referral, thank you. Follow up on the referral, win the deal, there's feedback, and we're creating this common ecosystem of communication that's not CRM dependent, it's not social media dependent, it's an app on your phone that's no different to sending an SMS, right? But it's everything that happens after that is where the power comes from. That's what creates the simplicity, but there's a lot of complexity that's been built into that simplicity. And I guess the other thing is, the thing we always hear is, shouldn't your CRM do that? Yes, CRM should do a whole lot of things for a whole lot of businesses that it doesn't, right? And the networking and relationship building and business development is quite often a pre-CRM function, because most businesses don't use a CRM until there's a deal that needs to be registered in a pipeline to report up to a manager, right? So we integrate into the CRM. So we do away with that, siloed data problem by, creating multiple ways that businesses can integrate refer it into their existing technology and feed the sales guy doesn't even have to think about it. Gets a referred lead in, it just gets pushed up into the sales funnel. Now management have visibility over it. Now there's some accountability to move that opportunity through the sales funnel.
I think that's a big point there, just to jump in there, Derek. Most salespeople are really good at the relationship side of things, but ask them to do some administrative stuff like enter data into a CRM. It's kind
yes, I can say that's true.
It's a little bit foreign, right? But having that sort of integrated system that captures stuff right before they even get it and then just automatically facilitates it through, I think is a significant efficiency.
I think the part that I really enjoy is the first thing is that I actually now remember I can go back to those people, because when you have that in message, you're going through number and you don't know who was the person. Sometimes you forgot the name, when you refer and the business happens, and having that, like, building up the network of people. They refer each other, helping each other, and they are high quality services. It's not just random person from LinkedIn or Facebook or somewhere. So you're actually building up your own network. It's almost like you're building up your small LinkedIn, right? But those people, and I think that's what became more important to me, because we can build up trusted relationship, but we need to remember name and face and the person, right? And when I don't come, like, I send messages on LinkedIn, but when I don't come back, and they don't check again the messages and don't go and scroll down through those, you don't have any reminder on LinkedIn. CRM has some reminders, but you need to set it up personally. You need to put it in the calendar. You need to put, the follow-up. And so many times, when you're busy, you don't even look at your CRM, especially in that small business or medium-sized business. So many people don't even have CRM. So it's really hard to actually keep or take care of relationships. And I think that's the point of that, right? Like having those people in your phone, basically, and just being able to see where they are at, if they met your referral, if they have something to say, like all that, having there, you can really start to build up your trusted network in the phone. So I like that part. And and with a reward as well. So I want to touch base on that as well. Like for me as a business owner that really didn't build up the referral strategy, it was kind of just happening naturally, but I never really track it and never really, have like a proper professional program written. And it really helps so much to now see, okay, how can I add value to my clients? I know my clients don't want, for example, financial reward. So, okay, how am I going to do it? And you created this amazing part of a reward system that I can, first of all, I can give away something for free and is officially in my reward program, so they can access my shop, almost like we can call it shop.
Yep.
So I found that amazing. And I also can actually I put the charity there, so they can actually take their tokens or what's supposed to be financial reward, and they can actually decide to give it to charity. I think that's a fantastic way of support different charities or causes and really help someone. And even if it's not charity, it can be family you want to help, right? But you really can put anything there into your reward program, and it can be something official that you do consistently. Because if you give someone $100 or $10 once, it doesn't really help. But when you have consistent program, at the end of the year, you see, wow, actually, we give away thousands of dollars and we actually help someone. So if we want to really make a difference, we need to have consistency and system. To me, that's what I see as a Referit solving for people and communication part.
Yeah, there's something like about 40, I think Points for Purpose quoted a number on a webinar I was on recently, and I think something like $42 billion of unredeemed rewards just in Australia. So you can imagine if people weren't going to use them, if they could just default redeem them to charity, there's $42 billion of resource that could be redirected. It's a really good point that you raised, that's the reward store is an option built into the platform, because some industries can reward, some can't. But even if you can't formally reward and you're not running a rewards store, you can still track and have visibility over who's adding value to your business. And as Mike spoke about earlier, rewards come in different ways. It can be products or services, or it can be financial, or it can be gratitude.
Phone call, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Really appreciate it. Hey, let's go to lunch. Let's go to dinner. Let's go to the football game. Let's go to the theatre. Yeah. What is it? And you see at the top end, all of that networking that happens with really high net worth people. What is it? It's dinners. It's on the yacht. It's weekends away skiing in Aspen or whatever it is. That's at the top end. And at the bottom end, it's just like, let's grab a coffee. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
I think that's a really good point too, is, the big business, if we're talking top end, big business has those sort of budgets that can afford to go and create these significant sort of reward stores. Even, take the airlines, they all run significant frequent flyer rewards and all that sort of thing. But to create and manage those sorts of environments takes a lot of money, and a lot of small to medium-sized business don't have that in budget. So it was a big part of what we wanted to do as part of giving back into the application, to create a reward store that can be customized for every business, whether it be a hairdressing salon looking just to reward their clients for personal referrals, right the way through to the corporate end. So
Yeah, I definitely love it. I love to have reward system. It feels good because in general we are all here, I believe, very grateful for everything and any help and support, because you guys supporting each other and you supporting me as well. So I feel like having more of those or this culture or this type of culture in small and medium-sized business is very important, especially now, because I think that disappeared for a while. It was a very competitive environment, very, very ugly almost, sometimes I can say toxic environment. So I really like how actually your application or your tech actually is solving or changing the culture as well, how to think about the business, how to think about your competitors. There are competitors is good. Like, it's good to have competitor. I love that. That will be strange if we don't have anyone, right? So we have a little bit of drive and also helping competitor. It's such a great point. Like, why we should only compete? We can compete different ways, right? So
co-opetition.
Yes, exactly. I love the word. So we have new word today. Good. So when you I will ask you what is the next, or what is next for Referit application? What are your plans before we finish, and I have one final question later on for you as well.
Mike, you want to touch on the roadmap, the vision?
Vision is really to keep the platform as simple as possible, but to keep on incorporating the technology as we go. So, as part of the roadmap, we spoke about AI earlier, really taking the fundamentals of AI to make life easier. And as part of that process, in terms of bringing people together through referrals or relationship management, is using the AI to identify and help businesses identify where there are opportunities in partnerships and the like. I won't go too deep into the tech because it's still early in our journey on that space, but we've got some really, really exciting concepts that we'll be bringing to market over the next 6 to 12 months, particularly in the AI space. Otherwise, as I said, it's really providing a nice, clean, simple platform that's easily integrated, easy to use. If you're sending referrals by text or email, it's no different to using the app. So it's as simple as that.
And what I guess it also does, and Mike touched on it before, and you touched on it about micro businesses being able to use the platform. We've actually built the platform out so that even individual sales reps that have accountability to a KPI but maybe need some control over their business development can even run their own networking through the platform and be able to afford to do that, to build themselves and build their own network and build their own personal brand, build their own profile, while still driving their accountability and KPIs and sales targets for their employer. But we've actually got the technology to a price point that where they can adopt the technology in their own right to help them, enable them to hit their targets within their role. So we're very much SMB focused, because at the end of the day, the small business end of the market is the biggest part of the economy, but it really gets the short end of the stick when it comes to support from big business, right? Facebook's not jumping over themselves to help small business. In actual fact, they're targeted at the big end of the market, and they keep pushing small business further and further away, or making it harder and harder and harder for small business. And that's not just Facebook, that's Google, that's all the big tech and the big socials, right? So that's one way that we can add a lot of value by making these turnkey processes and these systems and processes and technology really affordable and available for SMBs.
Yeah, I love that. Keep it simple and simplify people's life. I think that's where we are moving in tech. Anyway, we need to go that way because there was too many complications, I think, last few years. So I love that you're going that direction and have plans for making that better and having visions, to innovate on the way. I think that's a really important point. And look, everything what you said, Derek, I'm a great example of that. I'm working with businesses. There are 100 plus employees, and there is no one who has official referral strategy. Like it doesn't exist. So it's so interesting to see that you enter the market and you really saw the gap, right? Like there is this massive gap in the market. So I love Referit. I love the application. I love that it's really filling the gap, and it's filling the gap that is something that is going to help people, is going to help them to grow their business and have better relationships. So that's what I believe. And I love that. And look, at the end, probably for audience listening, what are your final words? And maybe what do you think that where to start? Because we touch base on a lot of topics today. It is, it looks like it's a massive, thing to solve when people are like, oh, now who is my ideal client, what to do and where to start? I want to set up my great referral strategy. Like, what do you think is the first step? What you would like to say to that?
The first step will be to go to the link on the page where you're hearing this audio or seeing this video, grabbing the link there and just take a free trial of the application, become part of the community, and just start that journey, right? we run a freemium model as far as the application's concerned, because we don't want small business to have to make any big decision to start with. Just get on the application, understand the principles and strategies around referrals, and then apply them, because you will make more money in your business. You will have a better business. Your business will be worth more money in the end. You will have a better lifestyle as a result, and you'll have more fun, right? So that's what referral marketing will do for you if you do it properly. You don't do it properly, it's going to drive you nuts, just like everything else you don't do properly. It's going to annoy you, right? You're not going to get the value out of it, right? It's, but yeah, look, click on the link in the description where you're listening to this or seeing it, and go from there. Start your journey and start focusing on referral marketing.
Starts with that little step, and then it's really just a matter of following a bouncy ball. And over time, all that complexity is simplified. And yeah, like Derek said, it's all about making profit at the end of the day, first and foremost, because that keeps the business doors open. But more importantly, having fun and being conscious about what we're doing as we move through it.
Yeah, and like everything in business and life, it's about consistency. Innovation comes through iteration, which comes through consistency of execution.
I can't even add anything more, because that's very well said. So thank you very much for your time. I hope we are going to grab coffee and continue this conversation, because we can probably go into that rabbit hole and we can talk more. What I would like to say, yes, I will put the link into description of the podcast. So guys, you can find us and you can connect with Derek or Mike via LinkedIn. I will share your profiles as well, so people can connect with you and find you. I believe you will, when you will start using application or you use the link, I believe you will get a lot of videos and some other materials, so that will be guidance in the application, so you don't need to be scared to use new technology. So what I can say, I'm really grateful for everything what we talk about today, because I think it's very valuable for every business and very valuable as a reminder for people to really keep relationships and trust and build up on that. And don't forget, that's actually the big strategy that we are forgetting a lot of times. So thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, really appreciate you creating the space to have the conversation. Love it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Derek.